carefully before you do this.
You filthy criminals.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
There it is. Dude, I'm still trying to figure that out. All right, we are live, and I am full screen mode, so let's get into the show, because it's not just me that's on the show. It's Nate's on the show, too. My buttons are all messed up right now. I can't get it together. All right, well, welcome to episode 28? 28?
Oh.
Yes, 28. 28. And yeah, so before we get the show kicked off, hopefully everybody's safe. Everybody that's watching here in Texas, we're dealing with actual weather when we usually are just dealing with whatever weather. So hopefully everybody's safe here in Texas. And if you're not in Texas, hopefully you're safe as well. You know, you might be more used to cold, but we ain't. Cold weather is just not for us. So that being said, before we kick off the show, get into the episode, we're going to talk really quick about our new little mystery pool that we have going on right now with Collected Comics, with Ron over at Collected Comics. If you didn't know, if you've been living under a rock, which, you know, that's pretty easy to do, right now we have a mystery pool monthly comic book subscription service that we're partnering up with Ron over at Collected. So it's a subscription service that you get every month. And in this subscription service, you get one store exclusive, 4 to 7 back issues, which can comprise of anywhere from bronze, silver, or modern age books. And then you get a chance to win a big key issue that we're going to put in one box that month. So this month, Ron will be giving away issue number 9 of Venom, the first appearance of Dylan Brock. This is a pretty hot book. It's worth about $80, and I think it's only going to go up in value as King in Black continues and once it ends. You know, me and Nate, we've both speculated that he might be the new Venom. So,
yeah, I think so.
We'll see what happens. But that being said, in the February mystery pool, that is the book. That is the big key that we're trying to give away. We got to get to, I think, 25 subscribers. If we get to 50 subscribers this month in February, we'll give away another key, and that other key would be Venom number 3, first appearance of Null, another hot book. And I think I
don't have that one still.
I think we had. Well, I mean, you could, you know, if we get to 50, you could subscribe. You know,
it's true.
If we get to 50 and we can give that, I think what did we say? I think it was like 380 or something close to that, or $300 is
it's
the value of that. Yeah, it's a pretty high book. But that being said, this is a great deal. You know, the store exclusive that Ron's giving away, I think we valued it at close to $30. So, you know, basically buying this mystery pool this month, you're getting, you know, close to 4 to 7 books relatively cheap, if not for free, and then a chance to get that key. So, you know, later on in the show we'll put the link. The link is live. You can subscribe now. It's on brainycomics.com, and you have access to it. And we encourage you to subscribe, because as we continue to grow this community, we're going to give away. Ron's going to give away more books, more keys, and so the more we can get people to subscribe, the more books and chances you get to win pretty decent sized keys. And, you know, we'll continuously post on our social about the books that we're giving away, and, you know, setting up all the subscription boxes and keeping you guys in tune with what's going on there. So that's how we're going to start the show off. You know, just want to give a quick reminder. Ron just set this up, so we are super excited about this partnership and just pushing this idea of a pool box, or a mystery pool, here in the great state of Texas. So let's get on to the show. We're going the wrong way. So we're going to kick the show off with obviously King in Black tie-ins. You know, we've got a lot this week. I think we're going to have a lot for a while, until probably mid-April. But we're going to kick it off with Daredevil number 1. Or I'm sorry, 27, not number 1. So this is a continuation from last, 2 weeks ago. I think these came up pretty
pretty quickly.
Yeah. And we really loved 26, Daredevil 26. I think it's done some of the best work as a tie-in to an event. Chip has really been able to merge his current story with the King in Black narrative, which is very, that's not an easy thing to do. We've seen a lot of tie-in books not do that very well. And so Chip has done a great job of tying in his narrative with the King in Black narrative, and it's been really good. And he continues that in this book. We get a continuation of what Elektra, and spoilers if you haven't been reading Daredevil, if you don't want to hear these, then just giving you a heads up. But Elektra is Daredevil now, and so she is dealing with the symbiotes and trying to basically just keep Hell Kitchen standing. And then Murdoch, he got turned into a symbiote in prison. And what we get in this issue is just that continuation of those stories. And I think Chip did a great job of showing, you automatically assume when Daredevil gets turned into a symbiote that he's just going to be instantly bad in prison. And in this book, it's like, no, we're going to Chip's going to play with it a little bit. And so we actually get an internal conflict between Daredevil and Noel trying to corrupt Daredevil.
Yeah.
I thought that was freaking awesome.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I thought it was pretty interesting at how well he's able to actually fight him off.
Yeah, and he calls back to his faith. I mean, that's like the first thing he does is like, no, I'm Catholic, and he just goes down that road, and Noel's just really kind of laughing at him, going like, you're worshiping a false god. I am the one true void god, and they just kind of go back and forth, and they're having this internal battle. And then on top of that, you have the battle that his physical body is having in the prison. Mm-hmm. And so just watching him go back and forth with that, I thought was really neat. And then, I mean, dude, if there was ever a case to not venomize somebody, don't do Typhoid Mary. Like, crap. She is boss in this book. Like, oh man, she was basically tracking down Daredevil, or she doesn't know that it's Elektra. She just sees the Daredevil suit and automatically is like, revenge.
Right.
And she's badass in this book too. Like, you can't stop her. And I think the craziest thing about that whole part of the story is that she essentially has a deal with Noel that if she can kill Daredevil, then she will sacrifice herself to Noel, and he can have control of her body. And that's what we get in this book with her. Elektra can't stop her. Elektra can't stop her in this book, to the point where she has to stop thinking like she's Daredevil and start thinking in her own terms and her own tactics, and figuring out a way to not necessarily defeat her, but just get away from her. So Elektra's not really... She's kind of out of her element in this book a little bit, because she's so enveloped in Daredevil that she can't think about her own training, right?
Yeah. She's very much trying to make sure that she stays true to Daredevil the entire time.
She's playing with the rules, playing with the principles of Daredevil.
Right.
And in that little chase that she has with her, we get that mother that was turned into a symbiote as well. Mm-hmm. She meets an untimely end in this book. She actually gets killed by Typhoid.
That scene looks like a caption straight out of a Something is Killing the Children.
Really?
The blades, the blade hands, and the way the blood kind of trickles out, and it literally looks like who's the artist on this?
There's two, isn't there?
Yeah, I believe this is the main one. Chichetto. Anyway, it seems like he was doing a direct homage, almost super obvious. I liked it a lot.
I mean, it was pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
But what we find, I think there's been this assumption that if you are enveloped with a symbiote, that any kind of harm that is dealt to you, you would assume you'd be okay. And that is not the case in this book. That mom meets her end. Like, she is dead. She's not coming back from that one. And so, in this chase that Elektra, I'm going to finish up the Elektra storyline so we can go back to Daredevil and then end with Kingpin. Because Kingpin ends at really the beginning. But with Elektra, what she ends up doing is she can't survive this fight. So she basically plays dead. At one point, they're jumping off of she jumps off the top of a building and slams into a car and then stops her heart. And so Typhoid thinks that she's dead, or that Daredevil's dead. And so she walks away. She gives herself to Null. That's the end of Typhoid, at least that we know of. And then Elektra pops up, and the little girl of the mother is literally crying because she finds out that her mom died. And Elektra, at that point, it's a really heartfelt moment. Elektra kind of just embraces the girl and is like, we got to keep moving. This isn't going to work out. Sorry, your mom died. So that kind of wraps up that part of the storyline. That's actually the end of the book. But then we go back to actual Daredevil in prison. And again, he's having this internal conflict, this internal fight between him and Null. And it was a really good dialogue of just showing the human spirit, I guess. And I could even say Daredevil's blind faith. Like, he entrusts his being to his faith. And I'm not sure. I haven't completed the entire Daredevil run up to now, so I don't know if that's still a pretty prolific theme through the book. But to me, that's the first time it's popped up. Like,
yeah, I think that's a pretty prolific theme for every Daredevil book, pretty much. But it is definitely in this one as well. Yeah,
like it jumped, like it screams in this book, which is not a bad thing. And so he, they go at it mentally, and he, at one point, one of the prisoners that was like his bunkmate realizes that there's some kind of internal conflict going on with Daredevil. And so at one point, the symbiote Daredevil has, taken care of a majority of the symbiotes in the prison, and he's trying to figure out a way to get himself rid of the symbiote, to the point where he locks himself in the room where they execute prisoners, and he's able to, basically that other prisoner is able to pull the switch on him and electrocute him to get the symbiote off of him. I thought that was pretty damn epic as well. But I think the biggest thing, and I think you said it when we first talked about this book, is the connectivity of what happens at the beginning of this book to one of the other books that we're going to get to, which is Thunderbolts. Kingpin in Thunderbolts 1 set up the team, and we're like, well, wait, what's going on? Like, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say confusion, but there's just like the timeline isn't fitting. And so in this book, we kind of get that sequence of events that led us up to Thunderbolt with Kingpin. Because he's a man of action, right? So he wants to make sure that he's in control. And so what we get in this book is basically the idea or the formation of him doing the Thunderbolts in this book, like what led to that decision making, right? So thought that was pretty neat. Overall, I really again enjoyed Daredevil. I think Chip did a great job of really melding the two ideas together. It's not my pick of the week, but it's still I enjoyed that it still felt like a fluid story rather than like we got through the first tie-in and now we're just trying to. It didn't feel like he was just trying to finish it. Like he had a purpose in his tie-in.
Yep. I think it was interesting that he somehow was able to continue his own story with Elektra being Daredevil and Matt in jail. He was able to add, background story to King in Black, and he was able to tie his story into a third writer's tie-in in Thunderbolts. That's pretty hard to do that much lining up, but I'm proud of him and whoever I guess the editors were for these books. They did a good job.
Definitely having some communication across writers and artists. Overall, yeah, great book. Love this cover too. The Daredevil covers have just been fantastic, like through the entire, up to this point. I think they're composed very well, and so I really dig this cover.
Yep.
All right, next up. All right, so I liked this book. let me wait. Fantastic Four, King in Black, technically number 1 because the story arc had just finished last week or the week before, and so we're getting our little kind of break in the story. The outside of I'll just say it right now, I didn't like the art in this book because it wasn't, and I'm going to say that because it wasn't R.B. Silva.
Right.
I'm like, why not? Why, I guess he needed a break, but come on, man. I want to see an R.B. Silva King in Black book.
Yeah, it very much felt like, it also felt like this artist who I'm not familiar with, so this could be their natural style, but it felt like they were trying to emulate Silva.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
Just didn't quite get there.
Yeah. So what I do like about this book is that it reminded me of events that happened in King in Black 1, because I totally forgot the ending in this book. So in King in Black 1, when all the shit is going down, or was it 2? Maybe it's 2. I don't know. It's either 1 or 2.
I think it's 2.
Everyone is lost essentially. The Avengers are done. Spider-Man is trying to recover Eddie Brock's body, and I remember after reading this book, but essentially what happens in that book is the Human Torch just shows up out of nowhere and is like, I'll fend him off. I'm going to blow myself up. And there was no explanation to it at all. Yeah, it just happened, right? So basically what we get in this book is Dan Slott kind of gives us the backstory to why that happened, right? And I think even in this one, it still kind of feels a little you went to 0 to 60 really quick with that decision. But again, I'm still in the process of reading Dan Slott's Fantastic Four run prior to, I started at Empire, so I don't know the team dynamic. I don't know, any of the backstory of what's going on, so I didn't realize in this book we get more hard feelings for, Sue not trusting Skye.
Yeah.
And just kind of brushing off the fact, and I guess I can see this because, Johnny is carefree, right? He doesn't make big decisions. He's kind of a gambler. He's a ladies' man, right? So me reading this book, I take it as Sue's got a point, that she doesn't trust Skye, and she doesn't really trust Johnny to have a legit relationship with somebody. And so in this book, that's what we get. We get Sue just kind of blowing off their relationship and not thinking that they're soulmates. And I don't know. I don't know if you've read that far in, but to me, I'm I kind of am on her side.
That far into what?
Into the Slott run.
Oh yeah, I read it all.
So is that a pretty prominent idea of Sue not trusting?
No, that's more new to this issue and the last. I mean, I think maybe one other issue it's slightly hinted at, but it's a pretty new development.
Okay, all right. So you just kind of threw it in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously the prior to this book is the before the event, and so it really revolves around Johnny and Skye, getting to know each other better, I guess, and Johnny realizing that this person, or this, I wouldn't say person, Skye is a lot more involved in his life than he thought, and she's really doing her homework. She's getting to know Earth. She's getting to know the neighborhood. She's making friends. She's associating herself with his life, and that's what we get in this book, at the beginning of it. And then, obviously, the Knoll symbiote hits the fan, and they try to do the Fantastic Four thing. I think there's something else that I'm missing in this book, though, that was kind of relevant. I think it's that because they talk to Val at the Forever Gate, and they're able to essentially lock it, right? Or I can't remember. Like, you have to have a certain sequence to get into the gate now, so it's not just open.
Right. Yeah.
For forever.
It has to be a member of the FF that can get through.
Gotcha. And then they also, obviously get their apartment back, which I thought was kind of cool. It was shrunken down, pocket dimensioned, which was pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. But what we do get in this book is after Johnny does his like supernova blast, this armband that the two wear, Johnny and Sky, is literally like, it proves that they're connected. So when Johnny gets absorbed by symbiote, he gets nullified, and Sky gets nullified the same time, but she's not near any symbiotes. So it happens through their like arm bracelet or something like that. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was pretty kick-ass. And then Sue like realizes like, oh shit, like I've misjudged this situation. And what we essentially get is Johnny and Sky, like, Noel taps into everybody's like negative desires, obviously. So he's playing into the fact that there's this like discord between the two. And so we, at the end of this book, we get them chasing Sue. She gets away. She gets to Reed. And Reed is trying to, again, like, everyone has fallen, right? So this is kind of like a backstory issue. He's trying to regroup, and he calls into Ben, and Ben's like, yeah, I'm good. Tell me where you're at. And then we cut to Ben, and Ben has been nullified. So overall, I liked it. The only thing, like, again, like, the only thing that my only critique right now is that RB's not on the book. Like,
yeah,
it's very disappointing. But
yeah, I actually preferred the first half of the book much more. I mean, I understand that this is a tie-in. It's what's got to happen, whatever. But there's just been so much weight in this second half of Slot's run on the relationship between Sky and Johnny that I really like. It'll get pushed on and then kind of weighted, and pushed on and then kind of dropped, right. And so like, what are we doing with this? And I like that we're at least getting a little bit farther into that storyline. Mm-hmm. So
I think the next issue is another King in Black tie-in, but then I think it's just going to be a 2-issue run, and then or 2 issues within the run, and then we'll get back to the Fantastic Four storyline. And you know what? I'll say it now because I'm thinking of it now. Is like I go back to it. I'm still pissed off at Slot for messing around with Franklin. Like, yeah. It's like still in the back of my mind. Like, how are you gonna fix that? Are you gonna fix it? Like, don't mess up. Don't mess with my X-Men. And like, clearly Franklin's part of that. And if you're just gonna be like, meh, I'm not gonna talk about it. Just gonna move on. I'm gonna be a little frustrated, and that has nothing to do with this issue, but it's just in the back of my mind every time I read an FF right now after that whole fiasco of him being demutinized.
Yeah, we'll see. It's gonna come back. He's gonna get his powers back. There's just no way they leave him that way.
I really hope I hope my theory is correct in the sense that it's Doom messing with him and pretending to be X. And he stripped him of his powers during the Chip Zdarsky run, or something like that. Just something weird like that. Because I know we're completely off topic of this book, but he better fix it. I'm going to be so frustrated if he doesn't fix it.
I agree.
All right, next up. Thunderbolts. Okay, so issue number 1, I was not a fan of the story. I dug the art, but I did not like the story. I was like, what are we doing? And maybe it was because their first issue they went after Norman Osborn, and I have like this, I wouldn't say hatred, but just like I'm just not a little bit. I'm just not digging the Spider-Man story. So like when you go directly to Osborn, I'm like, what are we doing? But I think number 2 picked it up a little bit, at least for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the first one, but yeah, I liked this one as well. So I really dig the art in this one.
Dude, the artwork is great. I think it's awesome.
With Ron Ferreira. Man, I'm gonna mess that up so
it's
bad.
All right.
Ferreira.
No, the artwork is great in this book. basically, so they get to the prison, or they get to Ravencroft, and they're all wondering why they're trying to save Osborn, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I may have skipped over, or I just didn't read it correctly. But he has a plan, right? He's got some kind of plan, and that's why he needs saving. But at some point in this book, they abandon him, right? They like...
Well, he goes off to do his own thing, and then they have to go. He gives them like the coordinates, right? That's where they go.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. I couldn't put the two together for some reason.
He just says he's gonna like make sure the facility is secure.
Secure, right? He's got other shit going on in that thing, so that's the whole point of that book, or that his plot line. I don't think we're gonna see him again. But they're given coordinates by Osborn to go find someone, and before they can leave the prison, obviously they get attacked by more symbiote goo. More prisoners turn into symbiotes. They got to fend them off. The one thing I did like was, like, in the first issue, Taskmaster wasn't wearing his mask, and I think that was on directive by Kingpin.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, I like that because it keeps true to what's going on in Daredevil right now. Remember, he's got that law that says that superheroes have to be unmasked.
Right.
So that's a good continuity consistency.
Well, then the Thunderbolts throw that out the door. Middle of this issue, they're like, fuck it, we're putting our masks on.
Yeah.
And I really I like Taskmaster's design. It looks more, I don't want to say Iron Man, but it's just more modern than just the skull, which I thought was kind of cool. And he flexes his muscle in this issue, like his leadership muscles, and just like, he throws around the fact that he's not someone to mess with. Like, out of everybody on the team, I think Taskmaster and Star are probably the most, like, dangerous people on the team. Like, I don't know the name of the other character that can kick.
I don't either.
I don't even know who that is. Ron, do you know who that character is? There's a character in there that literally, like, he puts his hands in his pocket and he just like roundhouse kicks. And he's French. I think that's the... And I don't even know, again, that also, I don't have a lot of reference for, is it Death? Or I don't know who the other skull wearing character is. Either way, they get tasked to go to a new coordinate, and it's not an easy trip. Bardozi Leaper. That's right, that's right, because they make a crack about it. She's kind of like, well, at least my name's not Leaper. Like, you literally just kick. That's what Star says. Because Star, to me, is like, she should be the more predominant force in this book. She has the freaking reality stone in her. She's just still trying to figure it out. But anyway, they get tasked to, like, go to this new coordinate, and at one point they get into a bus, and I don't think they're being chased, but Taskmaster's not paying attention. At one point he drives off of a bridge or something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's Taskmaster though. I think it's the weird guy.
Oh, the death looking guy?
Yeah.
That's right. And while that was happening, Star was tasked to actually, like, pinpoint the energy, like, frequency of what they were looking for, and she, like, catches it. And then as she sees that, they fly off of a bus, or they fly off of a bridge. She catches the bus, and they land safely to the coordinate, and then she kind of... Yeah, she does. Yeah, Ron says Star just doesn't know how to use it yet. Yeah, she's still figuring it out. But once they land, they get to the coordinate, and what we find is Osborn is sending them to the other, one half of, what's his name? Crap, it's fallen. I want to say it's not Shazam. What's his name? Sentry. God,
Sentry.
I just see an S. They get to Sentry, and what they find is they find the lower half of Sentry, and yeah, and they basically are like, wow, well, we found half of him, and I think Taskmaster's like, yeah, but it's like radiating with energy, like this is still useful, and I think that's where the book kind of ends, is just them getting half of Sentry's body.
Right. They're going to use him. They're going to use that part of his body to make a bomb, essentially.
Jesus. So this book definitely has, like, Suicide Squad vibes. And I dig that. Issue 2 has definitely helped me appreciate this book more. Issue 1, I was having a hard time getting off the ground with it, and this one definitely cemented like, okay, I can get behind this.
Yeah.
So that's Thunderbolts number 2. All right, next up. Okay, this one I am not reading. So we're doing, this is Black Panther number 1. They went the route of the Marauders book, just jumping out of the run, and doing a single issue tie-in. I'm all about that. I think that's a very smart play. Really, for collective purposes, like I don't have to put it in the middle of my run. I can just like put it in my King and Black box and just be done with it. And so this one was very complex. I think there's a lot of story going on in here that if you're not reading the current Black Panther run, that you're a little lost. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of dynamics that I just can't pick up on because I'm not reading that. But I did like, essentially in this book, Panther is not going to let Wakanda fall. Like, he will do everything in his power to not let the nation fall. Yep. And, all right, especially since Black Panther is ongoing out in space right now. Gotcha. See, I didn't even know that. And so, you know, he's basically back and he's doing his thing, and he's preaching to everyone that like, whatever we do not fall, we do not surrender. And that's essentially what he does in this book. He just, no matter the odds, he's not going to let Wakanda fall. And the artwork in this book initially I was like, but then once people started getting turned into symbiotes, I had much more of appreciation for it. I think that shows a lot of talent for some of these artists when they get their hands on that, like when they get to have their hand at turning people into symbiotes. And I can't really tell in this book, though. I don't know if there's a consequence of killing somebody that's a symbiote. I would assume that if you get killed as a symbiote, you're probably done. So we see a lot of people.
I mean, we see that with Typhoid Mary and Daredevil. So
right. So, you know, I think in this book we get a lot of people of Wakanda dying to people of their own hands because they've turned into symbiotes.
Right.
And we see that a lot in this book. The thing that I'm kind of confused about, and I don't know if it's having to deal with the current run or not, but it's this guardian energy that he's trying to resurrect in the book to defend the island. So I forget what it's called. It's like, it starts with the B.
The Bast, the giant panther.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something historical,
more connected to the book. And then the other thing we get is like Shuri connecting to spirits of Wakanda. That was another part that I was like, what is going on in this book? Like, I enjoyed this book, but I didn't know what the hell was going on because I'm not reading Black Panther right now.
See, I agree. I really liked this book, but I felt like it was just I felt like it told you just enough that you needed to know to get by. It was basically like, here's a little information, but don't worry about it. Ron says that's from an earlier Panther series. Yeah, I think at one point they referenced that the last time that they used the giant panther was during Secret Invasion. They say something about the scrolls.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was like basically
that's right.
Shuri was using one of her inventions that allows her to, manifest multiple spirits essentially that she's controlling. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this issue because it was a standalone issue. It didn't interrupt a ongoing. It had, a little bit of weight to the actual King of Black story, but not enough to where if you missed it, you would be missing out on the story. And it had a proper conclusion too. It all wrapped up into one.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway I took from this book is that Panther is willing to literally lose anyone for the nation of Wakanda. Like at one point, Shuri gets she gets venomized or nullified, and it's like it's scary looking. She's like she gets pissed. She's like, "You did this to me!" Like, and she's coming for him because he's literally he will not let anything get in the way of letting Wakanda fall. Or not letting Wakanda fall, and he let her get venomized, and then at the end the big beast is what's able to, or no, he shoots energy. That's right, he shoots energy into the force field that's surrounding Wakanda, and it vibrates all of the venoms or the symbiote off of people. That's what I liked about this book the most, is his ingenuity to like find another way to save lives without killing everybody that's turned into a symbiote.
Right.
Yeah, the symbiote shell. Yeah, that was crazy. So, and then like you said, like the book ends like there's no cliffhanger. It's like, and we're done here. Let's get back to the event.
Yeah, no, it's it's no cliffhanger, no loose ends that need to get picked back up. But what I also like too that I'm interested in is we get that one panel where you actually see the Earth and you see the entire like the planetary shell getting pushed back. I wonder if this will come into play in either another sword book or in another King in Black. Like this is kind of how people that are on the outside can get in to Earth.
I'm willing to bet probably at least one. I would bet if I was betting it would be King in Black.
Yeah, I would think so.
But you never know. Like with Sword doing what they're doing with like Krakoa and all that, that could also be a way to get in. But that was a pretty kick. I forgot about that. Like it just looks like a reversed hurricane.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no. Outside of not knowing what the hell certain things were, this was a fun book. And kind of like what we said last week. I think this is how Marvel should continue doing tie-ins. In my opinion, so that they don't mess up runs. Like I get doing that in Ten of Swords, and it doesn't bother me that much. But it's because we read X books pretty much religiously, and so we're not. It doesn't bother us that the Ten of Swords event happened in between runs. But I think for a casual reader, they're kind of like, wait, what? Like I was just here, now we're there. Okay, so. That's Black Panther 1, King in Black tie-in. Pretty fun issue, but I need to, if anything, when the run of Black Panther ends, which I think is next, month.
Yeah, it's really soon.
I need to read. I just want to read all of it. Just get a trade or something like that.
Yep.
So. All right, we've got Sword number 3. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you right now, I am having a real hard time. Picking my pick of the week.
Okay.
It's between this book and X-Force, and now that you remind me of, basically it's between my X-Men books, and so I think I'm going to come to my pick of the week probably when you see our post. So I'm not going to tell you what my pick of the week is, but it's between between my X books right now, our X books. And I know you didn't love it.
I thought it was okay. Yeah, it's definitely not what I was wanting from the X book, or from a sword book, I should say.
Right. I'm in the opposite camp, but I didn't know what to expect, right? So when I opened this book, I had no idea where we were going. And initially, when I saw the cast of characters that we were going to be dealing with, and it was just Manifold, I was like, I don't know. But, so let's just get into it. So this book basically is just a bio, essentially, of Manifold and what he can do and what he's been through. And at first glance, you look at Manifold and you think he's just a teleporter. That's not the case. So we get a breakdown of what Manifold's powers are actually, what he can actually do. Excuse me. And what he can do is he bends space around him in order to jump. And from what I took from that book, or from what that means is not only can he jump, teleport, if you will, to different points or in parts of the universe or on Earth. But I think he can also jump through time. At least that's how I looked at it. Like he can jump from a certain specific point in time and almost go back in time, if I'm not mistaken. Like if you looked at one of the panels, it looks like he was like in prehistoric time.
Yeah.
Somewhere. So he's not necessarily teleporting, but he's not. So he's able to fold space around him to manipulate space and time. He has space to bend. What happens when it refuses? Ooh. Yeah. And there's one panel that's a 2-page panel splash that's got like him jumping, which I thought was really cool. It was like almost a rainbow, or it is a rainbow. And somebody pointed out on Instagram that it was also the colors of the Infinity Stones. I don't know if there's any coincidence there. We'll see. But he also has a dialogue with some people of his native land, which is in Australia, and he makes, they're skeptical of him being part of Krakoa, and he makes an effort to let them know, like, oh, there's a land of like respect. There's a rule or a law saying like respect the land. And when he's leaving, they're kind of like, yeah, but they had to make it a law, so it's clearly an issue, which is something that he's kind of dealing with. But the biggest part about this book isn't really, the last part of this book is the King in Black tie-in, right? I'll just spoil it now. He gets, at the end of the book, he folds space to our current mutant friends who are all nullified by nullified Cable, right? But the, third part of this book, we learn obviously his powers, but we also find out that he goes to the Alpha Flight base, which is currently being in charge by I can't remember his name, but he's in Ewing's book right now. He's got he's in charge of Alpha Flight.
Gamma Flight.
That's right. What happens in this book is more important. I think it's a lot more important than we think. Gyrich?
Yes.
Gyrich. Basically, he actually goes there to like, hey, just checking in on y'all, just to see what y'all are doing about what's going on with Null. And he basically walks in on Gyrich having a phone call with somebody, and he's talking about Krakoa. He's talking about some kind of an plan to oversight on them. And then he drops a huge hint. He drops the fact that he has a mole within the Sword organization, basically spying on Krakoa. And I don't think Manifold hears that part. I think he dips out before the conversation ends. So he doesn't hear that part, but what he does get is he looks at some files that he was looking at, and it's Orchid, or I think that's how you say it, Orchid.
Yeah.
Which is the original organization that the mutants were dealing with in the Powers of 10 and House of X. So they're still around, and they're clearly Gamma Flight is now is a part of that organization, which doesn't really surprise me because they're worried about the mutants, and I think it only makes sense that they're a part of that organization. And then the other thing that happens, and I didn't really cover this, but I think it has implications within the Marvel Cosmic part of the universe, is Manifold's discussion with the Lizard Dude. That's a huge thing because
Snark War.
Yeah, Ewing has been playing with that species since Guardians 12, or I don't remember. Whenever that council.
Oh yeah, no, that's issue like 5, 6.
Right, and so we're seeing the consequences of that, right? Because in that issue, that species lost their planet to Null, and then somebody was killed within the base of that as well. And so what we get is we're dealing with the hierarchy of that race, and Manifold goes to them and says, like, hey, we need your help. Y'all don't really have a planet. You've been dealing with this. Why don't you help us on Earth? Like, we need the help. And the character that he's talking to is like, no, why would I do that? Like, it's literally dealing with my problems, and I can just let Null lay waste to my enemies, and I can pick up the pieces from the back end. And Manifold's like, right, fine, I'll dip. Like, I thought I'd ask, right?
Right.
And then as he leaves, like, all these consequential things are happening behind Manifold. Like, he's just missing the important parts, right? So when he leaves, the lizard dude gets freaking assassinated, which I think is going to have implications within Sword, and I think it's going to have implications within Ewing's Guardians run right now. Literally, there are 3 books that have consequences in this book: Sword, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Hulk's Immortal Hulk. All the books that Ewing is writing with. And to me, I think it's just a smart play on Ewing to like intertwine his other stories into this book. I think it's smart. Anyway, so a lot of things drop in this. That guy gets killed. Guy Ritchie basically confirms that Orchid is still around, and that he has a mole in in the Sword base. So now we got to figure out who that is. I have my suspicions. And then obviously we have to deal with the actual King in Black tie-in event, which is Cable being nullified. And I think we're going to get a resolve in that in the next book, which is not until end of March. So we got some time. But I enjoyed this book. I know that you were kind of meh on it, but
yeah, I mean, like I was hoping for a different direction. It's not that I don't think that what happened here was good. I just I don't know, just was hoping for a different direction.
I dog Ewing a lot, right? Like, especially in Guardians. Like, I'm just like, oh, it's like good. And to me, like, I finally saw him playing with the strings, right? Like being the puppet master in this book, in my opinion. And I think I think the most impressive thing about this book is I think that Ewing and Hickman's offices are probably right next to each other, because I feel like they're like, Ewing's like, give me more of your plot points so I can put them in this book. And I think with Orchid being dropped in this book, it was like, oh shit, like we're finally getting some consequence. What do you think about Doom joining the Guardians? Nathan loves it.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Nathan is like beyond excited. I'm like, what's going on? Not in a bad way. I don't know.
Yeah, I Doom's just one of my favorite characters, period, regardless good or bad. I like him as a character. I think he's intriguing. I like him in art. Like, I think that he has a good opportunity to be an interestingly drawn character, and I don't know of any context of him being in space like this, into a cosmic atmosphere. So,
I mean, he kind of did it a little bit in his miniseries, but he was dealing with like alternate universes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But nothing like, like joining a legit team. I'll be very interested. Like, I am in the camp right now, outside of the Star-Lord issue, that Guardians needs a jump, like needs a jolt for me personally. I know you've been loving it. Yeah, I roll, but for me personally, like, I am intrigued. I just hope it's not another, like, I don't know. For me, Ewing's Guardians run has been flat, and I think it all started with the whole introduction of the Greek gods, and for me, I was just like, where are we going?
Well, I'm not super into that either.
And the thing is they're literally going to be in the next issue, so I hope he resolves it fairly quickly. But that Star-Lord issue for me was like, ooh, let's do something. But that's besides the point. Sword, for me, this is a contender for pick of the week. You're going to have to find out on our Instagram feed what I pick, because I'm still trying to figure it out. I may be convinced by the end of the show, but right now it's between Sword and X-Force, and then before we started the show, you reminded me of Wolverine, and I was like, oh yeah. So I'm still on the fence, so all right, let's get into it. So let's just jump into our X books, because we're done with our King in Black. Excalibur 18. I am very pleased with the direction of where we're going, because we had speculated that when Betsy came back through the alternate reality she was in, that it wasn't her, or it's not the Betsy that we know, and this gets confirmed in this book.
Yeah, but see, I thought it was going to be Queen Betsy.
Well, we don't know. It might be.
It's not. It's that weird bogus bodied one that Jamie made.
Is it? Do we know that for sure?
I mean, it has to be though, right? Like you open the cage, you open the wardrobe, and she's not there, and he's like, "Oh shit, there's supposed to be a body in here," and now there's a random
Right.
Betsy on the run. Yeah, it's got to be her.
Well, I mean, we have multiple. The thing about this book is we have multiple Betsys running around everywhere. Like,
That's true.
so, but okay, I see your point there. Yeah. So it's so what happens is Betsy shows up. Everyone clearly is looking at her going like, "That's not our Betsy," because she's not acting like Betsy. She's like super like. She's emo mode essentially in this book. She just doesn't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone. I'm gonna go sulk in a corner.
Right.
And Rogue, takes the charge. Takes the lead in this book, and is trying to do everything she can to figure out who this person is, so that they can find the real Betsy. And I think it's Rachel Summers ends up like lending her some powers, like psychic powers, to kind of get a read on it.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the artwork of like the illustration of when Betsy was eavesdropping in on conversations.
Oh, that butterfly looking.
Yeah, like
that's
seeing the
old
eye,
school.
yeah, seeing the eye butterfly like kind of creep on you and go like, "Stop talking about me."
Yeah, I
thought that
remember
was cool.
that from when they first introduced Betsy in like the old school Uncanny, like the Chris Claremont Uncanny.
So you've done your homework.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to. I actually haven't. I was trying to read X-Men from Giant Size up, and then I got to follow the mutants. Where now I'm trying to juggle New Mutants, Uncanny, and X Factor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, listen, I'm already reading 15 X books in real life, or like in modern times. I don't know if I can also read 3 more X. It's been tough.
And we'll talk about that later because they keep on adding them. Either way, so in this issue, like you said, we get some confirmation that like we're pretty sure it's the Betsy from Jamie's like plan, or Betsy's or Jamie's deal with Sinister to create another Betsy.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's where it's from. But I also feel like he's created other Betsys. We've had issues where he's fucked with Betsy in other realities.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to like even the Ten of Swords tournament, and then you've got all the Betsy's that were created during the Ten of Swords. Like, shit's getting crazy. And what I'll say is like, Excalibur has been entertaining. It's had its ups and downs, but I think like Howard is finally like getting into like her groove in this book. Like she's finally dealing with the shit that she wants to deal with. And the other thing that happens outside of like, the revelation that it's not their Betsy, is we find out that Apocalypse left all of his magic mutant dealings to Richter.
Yeah.
And like, I'm in the same boat as like Gambit and Rogue and Jubilee. I don't trust the dude. Like I don't. Even after Ten of Swords, I still don't trust the dude. But I grew up not trusting Apocalypse. Like he's always up to something, right?
Right.
And even after the resolve of Ten of Swords, which was this whole time he's been planning to recruit the strongest mutants so that he could get his whole family back. Great. I still don't trust the dude. And Richter in this book is very like, he's giving us the keys to our, not nation, but like our what's the word? Our identity. There we go.
Yeah.
Said that very like and so Apocalypse left him all of his like grimoire essentially of like how to do magic as a mutant. And I think that's also going to play into like later on in the Reign of X run of like combining powers. I think it's just another avenue to do that. I think we're going to get there at some point. But then at the end of this book, Brian Braddock gets involved. He realizes it's not his sister because she's not talking to him. And so they, at one point they follow her, Rogue follows her, and she gets attacked by her, and before like the crushing blow happens, Psylocke shows up. And Psylocke's there to save the day. And I'm, not reading X books. Psylocke to me is probably one of my favorite female mutants. She's just cool. Like, she's a kick-ass assassin. And I'll be honest with you, when we started reading, I had no idea about the whole like swapping bodies and not having my mind. I didn't know anything about that. Nothing. Mm-hmm. So they're building upon that idea in this book, and I love it. And when she shows up, I'm like, hell yeah, Psylocke, like kick some ass. And so, we're gonna I think we're gonna get a definitive answer. Is this Jamie's Psylocke? Which it's pretty evident, I guess, that it is. I just didn't connect the dots. But even if that's true, we still have the mystery of where's the Queen Betsy and where's our real Betsy. They're still missing.
Lost in the multiverse.
So I think Howard is going to continue exploring the multiverse of getting, our original characters back. I enjoyed it. Not my pick of the week. This was not one of my contenders for pick of the week, but I did enjoy it. It wasn't a flat issue. I think issue 8 or 9 when they did the whole hunting for the silver werewolf. That to me was that was flat. This is not flat. This is I think this is continuing the dialogue. That to me was filler, and this is not filler for Howard's run, in my opinion.
Nope, I can see that.
Ron says, I do like the idea of mutants more powerful being combined. Well, I mean, they hinted at it in House and Powers. They literally do it in their history. That's how we get Rasputin and the Red Nightcrawler in that book. And I just think I don't think we've seen the last of those characters. And I think out of one of these X books, that's going to happen. We're going to see the beginning of that idea. And to be honest, I want Rasputin back from the House and Powers. I thought she was a kick-ass character, and she was gone in the 3rd issue. I want more. I want, Comic Book Herald has hinted at the fact that when she died in 3, that black hole that was created actually time warped her to the present, that we're going to actually see her in one of these books. That's one of his theories. And I hope it's true, because that would be dope.
Interesting.
Yep. All right. X-Force 17. This is a contender for my pick of the week. It had everything for me. It read like a movie. Artwork was fantastic.
Yes, it was very good.
And it made me for me, pick of the week has to have a lot of attributes in order to make that for me. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing for me is when you end the book, you want more, right?
Yes.
You want more. And for me, this book ended and I was like, I want more. Do I have to wait a month? I want it now.
Give me more.
And so what we get is confirmation of Omega Kid, or Kid Omega, right? Oh, yeah, Kid Omega. Basically get confirmation that he is sick of dying. He dies in every freaking issue of X-Force. And I think the last time we saw him die, if I'm not mistaken, did he die in the underwater issue? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I
don't think he did. So I think the last time we've seen him actually die was before the Ten of Swords event happened, and he was abducted by Colossus's brother and brought to, or was kidnapped and sold to Xeno, the group, the gang of humans that hate mutants, and they're trying to disenfranchise the mutants. So that's the last time we saw him die. And so in this issue, he's going on a date with one of the daughters of Emma Frost. I forget their names. It's like the something twins. I can't remember.
Cuckoo sisters.
Cuckoo. That's right. There you go. So in this book, what we get is him confronting the fact that he's sick of dying. He goes on a mission, he's told to go on a mission, and he goes to a cruise ship. And in the cruise ship, everyone is dead, except for a little girl. And when he goes to say, hey, you're okay, she freaks out and is like, don't touch me. You're the bad guy.
Right.
And so you're trying to figure out why. So when they're brought in to, figure out what they're dealing with, they all have they're psychically scarred. And One person thought they were being attacked by Wolverine. One person thought they were being attacked by Colossus. And then the other one, the girl, was actually attacked by Kid Omega. And he's like, how is that possible? Like, I didn't do it, obviously. And excuse me, I don't think they really resolve that, or they don't resolve it at that moment. But he's trying to figure out what's going on. So when in the process of that happening, he's like, you know what? I need to have a costume change. And so he goes through like different costumes. Like they take him to a tailor, a mutant tailor. I know he's pretty prominent. He's got like 4 arms. And they go through all these different. I'm gonna pull the issue because there is one outfit that I was like, that is hilarious. I think it's the Cable outfit because he goes, too many pouches.
Oh yeah,
and it looks like he's
pouchy?
dressed up. Yeah, he's dressed like original Cable. Yeah, too pouchy. And they dress him up like
Wolverine,
Blob. The other two are kind of weird.
I think it's like a Superman knockoff suit.
Yeah, that's what I kind of came to the conclusion of.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they finally come to like this really neat looking like black suit with Omegas around it, and his glasses are kind of made out of energy. And then at the end of the issue, they're getting ready to buy the clothes, and he looks in the mirror and he sees like a zombified version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And it freaks him the fuck out. And then when that happens, the tailor that they were using, the mutant tailor, has gone psychotic, and he's got like pink energy coming out of his eyes, and he's going after him. And then we get Xeno, the head of Xeno, basically saying like, "Gotcha, checkmate." So clearly they've used the kidnapped Omega somehow, like they did with Domino. I think what we've got here is that Kid Omega never died. And they just resurrected Kid Omega because he's died so many times that they don't need to clarify. They don't. The Five nor what's the name of the group that investigates?
X Factor.
X Factor just kind of assumed that he died without looking for his body, right?
Right.
And so what we have is we've got 2 mutants that are dealing with the same person. Just reading it, I was like, this is dope. Like, the pacing of this book for me was really fun. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going for it. It's my pick of the week.
Oh.
I'm saying it now, and what reminded me outside of the story and just the intrigue and the idea of like, what are we going to do with 2 Kid Omegas, because you're not supposed to do that in the X books. You have to be dead before you get resolved. The biggest thing that sold me for this is the artwork of everybody dealing with their demons that they saw, like the Colossus ripping somebody in half and Wolverine. And then when they're talking about, you have to get over the fact that you've been killed so many times. And he's like, well, I've locked it deep away in my brain. He literally produces an Omega key and plugs it into his brain. Like that right there, that could be a second printing cover. I love that artwork.
Yeah.
Like it's just good. And I got finished with this book and I was like, I want more. So that's my pick of the week. I'm sorry. I got to do it now. I'm sorry. It's my pick of the week.
Give me more.
Give me more. So I know that they're dealing with this whole idea of Omega Kid for at least the next 2 issues. And I think the April issue of X-Force, the cover is insane. It's like Jean Grey dealing with all those demons that he's created. And it's like flying out of her brain. I'm pretty sure X-Force, outside of if there's a Donny Cates book that same week, is going to be my pick of the week for a couple months. All right. Wolverine number 3. This one almost was my pick of the week. And I believe...
Yeah, this is my pick of the week.
Yeah.
For sure. I just really enjoy the pacing that we get in every single one of these books.
Uh-huh.
Issue 1 was also my pick of the week that it came out as well. So... when you've got 2 out of 3 being picks of the week, and it's all the same stuff, but in a great way. Like it's really good, concise stories. It's writers showing you how, writing a good, concise story that's only a few pages long, and artists like just kind of having fun. They're not worried about, meeting a deadline or sticking to the style of the book. They're just laying it all out there, and I really enjoyed it.
All three stories in this book were awesome. Like, and there was a Donny Cates story in this book. It's the middle story. It was freaking. It was really good. The first story is in Japan, and it's Wolverine fighting Silver Samurai over his adopted daughter.
Yes.
That was
dope. Yeah, so he basically has to battle him and I can't remember his wife's name, but Mariku or something similar to that, have to fight 32 different soldiers, 32 different warriors. And the samurai says if you defeat all 32 of them, then you can have your daughter back. And so he fights a plethora of ninjas and ronin and samurai, monks, and he eventually fights Silver Samurai, defeats him as well, but then he realizes that was only 31 warriors, that wasn't 32. I can't remember his daughter's name. Amiko?
Amiko, yeah. Amiko.
Yeah, Amiko. And so Amiko is the 32nd warrior. And yeah, the story was really great. I don't think I need to spoil it because it's simple, but it's a great ending. It's a great story. The art in it was very, very good.
It's simple, but it's effective. Like it definitely, all three of these stories you could take the principle that I set for X-Force, like you want more, and the pacing of it feels kind of like a movie, and you're not. I know this sounds critical, but you're not reading the text like you're like, oh, just got to get through it. You're like, you're intrigued to find out what's going to happen next. But yeah, that story's badass. And then the middle story is a Donny Cates story, my favorite out of all these books. Like the Samurai one's really good, but the Donny Cates one, it's just classic Donny. Basically, Logan walks into a bar, sees Frank Castle, and Frank's like, I'm not the Frank you think I am. I'm actually the Cosmic Ghost Rider. And Wolverine's like, the fuck is that? And Castle basically is like, listen, I can't really explain it to you, but I'm really here to see like a story that I literally want to live a story that you tell me all the time back in the future. And so he's basically, Logan told him about a story about a bar fight that he got into, and when the bar fight actually happens in this book, he's like, wait, it didn't work out that way. And so then
he's like, did I fuck this up?
I fucked this up. Yeah, so he ends up having to intervene in the fight. And again, you're right, I don't want to spoil it. If you're on the fence about picking up this miniseries, definitely do it. Like Nate said, each story, the writer, it's no bullshit. They get to flex their muscles in the story, and it's like, oh, this is how this writer would do Wolverine. And 9 times out of 10, you're like, yeah, I'd read that book. I would totally pick up that series if they did it. And Donny Cates is no exception, and neither are the other authors or other writers in this book. I mean, the third story is Wolverine and Magic going to Mars because it's being colonized by rogue AIM agents. And in that book, we get classic Logan, like using not just his powers, but just like his just natural abilities of defending himself. And it's got humor, it's got action, it's got everything. And I think this series is really Marvel. I know that this is kind of a copy idea from DC. Like Marvel decided to essentially, they did this on top of, because DC was doing Batman Black and White, and so they're like, all right, we'll do Wolverine Black, White, and Blood. I think it was a great copycat idea. Every time I get this book, I'm like, I'm looking forward to it, and it's super fun. So I think we have
just one more, right?
Is it one more, or are there 2?
I can't remember.
Maybe it's 4. Either way, and then on top of that, we'll say this again, the covers for these books have been phenomenal, and this one is no exception. So kudos for being pick of the week. I almost picked it literally just for that Donny Cates book, but sorry, X Factor was just better. Sorry.
This is definitely something I'll pick up in a trade format once it's done, because it's something that I feel like I could pick off the shelf like a dozen times because I just want to look at that one story. 4 or 5 pages.
I mean, I posted a random panel. Like I try to do that where we do a random panel from our week's pulls, and I pulled it from this book. It was the Wolverine fighting. I think it was them fighting the monks.
Okay.
But dude, I mean, it's just you're right. It's a great book, and then I think also the Donny Cates story, the Cosmic Ghost Rider story, will be in the Cosmic Ghost Rider Omnibus. I read that somewhere, so even a story in this is going to be in the in Donny Cates' book. But kudos again to stories you can read without worrying about continuity. Exactly, Ron. Like.
Yes.
It's just fun. You don't need to necessarily, I mean, you can walk into this book knowing a lot about Wolverine, or you can't, and it's enjoyable either way. And I think that's the perfect thing for comics right now. All right. Eternals #2. I read this one and I definitely did your like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's at fault of, I don't disregard, or I don't discount this book because of that. Because issue 1 was so fucking thick. Like, there's a lot going on in issue 1, and so you needed a little bit of a refresher, and I had to do that after I read this book. But Thanos is definitely back. That is not a projection. That is not, at least as of right now, that is not. And there's some definite mystery and intrigue in this book. Essentially, we get the first part of this book is Icarus and Thanos going at it. And I don't have a lot of history of Icarus, right? Am I saying that right? Icarus?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that they've actually never fought. I guess they've never met. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's established in this book, and they go at it and they fight. And towards the end of the book, or towards the end of the fight, Icarus gets his head ripped off.
Well, kind of.
But it's actually an illusion by the other Eternal. Well, I can't remember her name.
Sprite.
Sprite made an illusion because Icarus was getting his ass kicked. And so, we see this fight. We think Icarus dies. He doesn't. But they get away from Thanos. But the big mystery about this is, well, they find out that Thanos is the one that killed the King of the Eternals. But what they establish in this book is that they say that Thanos is not an Eternal, that he is, a deviant, if you will, but not really. Like, he's like a subsect of Eternals, but not necessarily a deviant. He's just like a mutant of a deviant, of a Eternal. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And the question that gets raised is how, they've looked into the logs of the machine, and somebody, whoever killed the King of the Eternals used the jump warps or whatever that the machine can use. Well, Icarus has already confirmed that he killed the King of the Eternals. So is he an Eternal? Because only Eternals can use that gate warping, apparently. And so that's a huge mystery that's put in this book that I'm like immediately like, uh-oh, like we've got some issues here. And just, to me, that was the biggest part of this book, was what we come to find out is like, well, is Thanos an Eternal? I mean, if you use the rules that you're setting, that only Eternals can use the machine, well, he got there somehow, unless somebody else is, and then that's when they come to the point of, did somebody within the Eternals help Thanos to kill the King of the Eternals? And so that's the mystery we get in this book. And I go off it again. I'm not as big of a, let me rephrase this. I'm not dogging this. I am not a super fan of Asad Ribic, but I enjoyed the artwork in this book. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I think the art was a little bit better in this book than it was the first book.
There were a couple panels that I was like, that looks a little rushed, but it was like somebody's eyes, it didn't ruin it for me.
Yeah, he often does that with eyes. He'll just like leave them blank, and I'm like
blank, or he'll just put like dots, like boop boop, like real quick.
Yeah.
He
often likes to do this face a lot.
Dude, that's all. Like, this book is all that. There's one where Sprite is like,
Yeah.
Like multiple times in this book.
It's literally prevalent throughout his work. Like if you'll see it a lot in his Thor run too with Jason Aaron.
Nice.
So with such mastery, sometimes you have to deal with some.
That's okay. That's okay. It doesn't take me out of the book. If anything, I look for it now, because it does pop up a lot. The other thing that we get in this book is, so after they have some internal conflict amongst the Eternals, and they're trying to figure out who they are basically coming to terms with the fact that Thanos is not an Eternal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a mistake, but anyway, they think that somebody within their ranks is helping him, and that's how he was able to use the machine or Earth to jump through realities to kill the King of the Eternals. The other thing we get in this book is that the King of the Eternals can't be brought back to life because the machine is broken. And even the machine is like, oh shit, I didn't know that. Like,
I didn't realize that was broken.
Yeah, even the machine is like, throughout the entire book, it's speaking and is like, oh, that's why I'm off. So maybe there is some foul play going on here, and maybe it's not Thanos. Maybe Thanos isn't an Eternal. We don't know. But then at the end of the book, after everyone accuses of each other of being the mole, Icarus is like, well, you know what? I'm dipping out. I got to go find this kid, because in the previous issue, by the machine, I was presented this death of this 13-year-old boy that we as readers have no idea what the consequences of this is. We don't know why, but Icarus was shown this and said, I will not let this happen. So he goes and finds this kid, and he goes, hey, you don't know who I am, but just to let you know, I'm not going to let you die. And the kid's like, what? And that's how the issue ends. Right?
Yeah.
I read on CBR that they were like, this might actually have the potential to completely upend the Marvel universe, like the timeline.
I mean, I saw it, but I didn't understand where they were coming from.
I didn't either, but I wouldn't put it past the fact that they're probably right, because from my understanding of the character Icarus, he's a hothead, he's stubborn, and he will do whatever it takes to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. And so, like, I guess to me, like, classic time travel / don't fuck with the multiverse rules, if you're presented something that's factually significant within history of time, whatever you want to say, and then you're like, nope, I'm not letting that happen, well, then there's going to be consequence, right? Like, he could potentially fuck up a timeline or a multiverse.
Right.
That could be a stretch. We don't know, but that's what people are speculating. Outside of not knowing, like, having to do research for, like, literally having to go back to issue 1 to figure out what we were just read, I enjoyed this book. I thought it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And this cover also, I think for me, this is the pick of the week for covers. This cover is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. That's a very unconventional Thanos, I think. I think that is probably the most human-like Thanos that I've seen.
The detail is so good. And that Thanos fight was really cool, man. Like, I didn't want it to end. Like, they were slamming each other and throwing each other, and like, it was really cool. So I enjoyed it.
Agreed.
Why do I do this to myself? Ron, can you tell me why? Can you tell me why I'm still reading Spider-Man?
Uh-oh.
Can you tell me why? I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna keep reading. But I'm just getting frustrated, man. Like, I feel like I'm not trying to dog on Spencer. I know he's a good writer. But
is he?
I'm bored. No.
Is Spencer a good writer? Like, what else? I'm not
don't-
familiar with his work, so
Maybe I'm just giving him credit. Maybe I'm giving him credit because I know him and Donnie are like this.
Oh, are they?
I guess. But I'm just like, and maybe it's me thinking like, please, Donnie, just write Spider-Man. Please.
He will eventually.
He will. Yeah, you're right. Just probably not right now. Okay. So I think what's frustrating me is that I still feel like Nick is writing this book like we're still in the Kindred arc. He doesn't know how to end stories.
You've been saying that for
That is. Thank you. All right, show's over. Ron said it. Spencer doesn't know how to end the story.
Yeah.
All right, next book. Just kidding. Shit. Oh God, you're right.
My gosh.
So the problem is, you're right. Nick Spencer doesn't know how to end this freaking arc. We are still stuck. All right, let me explain that. It's not that we're still stuck in the Kindred arc. It still feels like we're stuck in the Kindred arc because the Kindred arc ended and it wasn't resolved, right? We're still dealing with Kindred, but we're going on to this other arc that's being set up for Kingpin. And we were never, like, officially told it's over, like he didn't end it. And so he did it with 50 issues of Morning Glories at Image Titles. Got you.
Yikes.
Yeah. So essentially, Mr. Negative comes back. He gets his sins are reintroduced into his body, and then Kingpin immediately arrests him. And then we come to find out that Negative has this like tablet that Kingpin is looking for, and it's like there's a negative and a positive tablet. I think I'm saying that wrong, but anyway, Negative has it, and Kingpin's like, "I will let you free if you give me this tablet." And Negative's like, "I'll give you the tablet if you give me back my territories within the city and you let me free." And so that's how this issue ends. Essentially, is Kingpin is on track to gain more power, more influence with these tablets. And I think it was announced that in May, in order to end this arc that's starting, which they don't name the arc here, but they name it later on, I forget what it's called, they're having a giant size issue to end the arc. Mm-hmm. When I initially found out that that's how they're going to end this Kingpin arc that's just starting in this book, I was like, oh, Nick Spencer's done. He's going to be over with Spider-Man, and then they're going to announce that Donny Cates taking... No, it's just the end of the arc. So I don't know how many books Spencer's on for, but I kind of want to like, I don't, again, we try to be positive on the show, but consistently this run is making me more and more frustrated. And I hate sounding like that because I love Spider-Man. Like when I grew up outside of the X-Men, Spider-Man was my favorite character. And I read this and I'm like, I don't want to read Spider-Man anymore. And I sound like a little whiny bitch, but like that's just how I feel about it. And this will be the shortest book that we review because I have nothing else to say about this book because it's boring. I hate saying that because I want to support comics. I want to support buying these comics, and I'm going to continue to read it. But the only reason why I got into reading Spencer's run was because of the Sin Eater arc, because the covers look so fantastic. And now I'm just being like completely let down. Switch to nonstop Spider-Man when it comes out. Okay. We'll see.
Are those titles supposed to overlap at all?
I don't know. I'll tell you this. I've seen like issue 2 and 3 of that, and they look really cool. Like the covers look really cool. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm gonna keep at it because I'm gonna hold faith. They do not. Ron, confirm that they do not.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna keep at it because I am a Spider-Man fan, and I'm hoping and praying to God one day that Donny Cates does get this run and gives it justice. I'm just gonna say it. Just gives it justice. I know that I will say this: Chip Zdarsky obviously is not going to be in this run, but he is doing a little mini that starts in April that I'm super excited about. So
yeah, that's gonna be good.
All right, I'm gonna take a potty break, but you're gonna talk about Undiscovered Country because I really gotta pee.
Gotcha. Well, it's not gonna be long, so
okay, I'll be quick.
So yes, Undiscovered Country 12 is the end of the second arc of this book. Basically, where we were at last was our band of travelers have been put into brain pods by the leader of Unity, and she's essentially going to control their bodies to tell Sam that they want to choose Unity to be the representation of America or of Aurora for the world. However, she doesn't get very far into doing this before she is interrupted by I can't remember his name. Destiny Man. She's interrupted by the Destiny Man, who has followed her over, or has followed the group over from the first area in the United States. Honestly, part of this issue part of my issue with this issue is it felt both rushed and really long at the same time. We get a lot of fighting back and forth between the leader of Unity and the Destiny Man. A lot of arms getting chopped off and a lot of heads getting chopped off, and a lot of these bodies aren't real bodies. They're just representations of bodies, and they're like technology, computer bodies, and it was just a lot to follow all at once. But overall, what we were doing here is the leader of Unity says, listen, Unity starts to crumble, starts to fall apart, and she says, I'm going to find a way, or I'm going to allow you guys to get out of here, because I trust in Unity so much that I think even after you go see all the other districts, once you get to Aurora, you'll choose Unity as the best representation of America. And so they, just by the nick of time, they're able to get to the third area, which I cannot remember what it's called. Possibility, I think is what it is. It looks like it could be like pirate themed, which is interesting. So, I wasn't super impressed with this as the end of an arc. I was hoping, honestly, the one thing I like about this issue is Snyder and Sewell kind of use it as an example to grandstand about some of the things they don't like about America. And really, they only did that once. Destiny Man has a monologue where he basically goes on about how America is always about the newest technology, and he brings up the Colt 45 and the intercontinental ballistic missile, and how we're all about big explosions, and that our technology is eventually our destruction, and that's why he thinks Unity would not be the right representation. So yeah, I mean, that's, we're basically left with I think these first two were kind of supposed to be polar extremes of one or the other. One is very, Destiny Man's area was very rugged, Mad Max, not technological whatsoever. Whereas Unity shows you like the technological extreme, like what happens when you're so obsessed with technology that you essentially steal baby brains and create a mega hive mind out of it.
What did I just get myself into? Jeez.
Yes.
Baby brains.
You don't remember that from the last one?
I did.
Vaguely. So I don't know. We'll see where we're going. I like the first arc better than the second arc.
Is that the network that's like you were talking about, where they?
Yes.
Oof.
Yeah. So, yeah, the old woman that is represented in this, that's what she actually looks like on this cover here. She's been alive for like 180 something years.
Nope. Nope.
Anyway, the next arc actually doesn't start until it says late spring, so I guess like May or something.
Are they just going on a break like all our other independents? That's
So,
I get that, but that's so frustrating. Like, I get it, but
yep.
Because like I look at our pull list in like 3 weeks, and like there's nothing wrong with only picking up 9 books, but it's like I just want more. Like, I like our Marvel books, I like our DC books that we pick up, but I also want that little sprinkle of independence, right? And I
agree.
And then you think about it, and you're like, well, there's a bunch of new number ones, and you're like, yeah, but then
You can't start all over again. I'm for this particular one, I'm kind of glad. I would like a little break and then maybe revisit my back issues right before it comes back. Read all 12 of them. Just see where we're at, because what made me fall in love with this book, I feel like I've kind of forgotten what that was, and so I need to go find it again.
You didn't hear my joke, but at one point you were like, maybe the next arc is pirates, and then like my mic was off, and I was like, oh, so is there going to be ninjas? Because like pirates versus ninjas.
Oh.
No, that doesn't land because.
Well, the next arc is called, the next section is called Possibility, and it's literally that anything can happen. So
maybe,
yes,
maybe ninjas.
Easily could be ninjas.
All right, next up, Origins, number 4. I say this every time this book comes up. Like, they're consistently building more and more on this book, and we get fed a little bit more information every time. And the network essentially found our human, and so in this one they're escaping all the robots that they came in contact with that were trying to, like, you know, they hadn't served a human in forever, and that's their purpose, or they were just basically throwing themselves at the human, at David, I think his name is. I could be wrong on that. They essentially escape with him, you know, when the network finds them. And one of the, like, bodyguards that he has falls in this book at, like, the first part of the book. And it's really sad because, like, he's like, go, and he defends, and then he ends up being, what we find out is that the network not only can corrupt, like, robotic AI, they've also learned how to produce organics that they can control. So, like, the vegetation, they can poison ivy it basically and make, you know, things grow, and you can get like sucked up by like plants. So they figured that out. But in this book, we also find out that they have brought back endangered or extinct species, and they're like, oh, look, there's some rhinos, and they're like, nope, those rhinos are infected by the network, and they're able to control, basically bioengineer animals, and then, you know, they can tap into the network and say, like, hey, you know, there's the target. And so at one point they're trying to escape, and there is like a stampede of rhinos coming after them. And so they're having to defend. And what this book does is we basically move up in time fairly quickly. So, like, we're kind of a teenager, we're a young adult, and by the end of the book he's like an old man, and they finally make it to this like bunker that is like the salvation. And so this guy has an army of robots that will literally do anything for him, and he's really pissed off about it. He's like, go live your life. And the robots are like, this is what we were built to do, so we're going to serve you because you're the only human left on Earth. But he still doesn't know why. And so we're getting like little bits and pieces of history of what's going on. So that's what happens in this book. But the big revelation is that the network can literally manipulate living organisms to do whatever they need them to do. And so the network is still constantly trying to find this guy. And when that part happened where they were manipulating the rhinos, I was like, oh, and one of the bodyguard robots like has like a giant cleaver, and he was just like thunk, and like cut one in half as it was like running at them. It was crazy. Overall, I'm still enjoying like the intrigue of this book. I think by issue 6 it's going to be like, and here's the grandiose plan. And I'm looking forward to it because I think this could be a decent movie on Netflix or in Hollywood in general. Once we like, because if you were to read this like a movie, it definitely reads like it. Like, you're getting bits of information to the point where, like, at the end you're like, oh, there's the full circle. And so we're just getting another piece of that circle or that puzzle in this book. And then again, I always go to it, but the artwork in this book it's funky. It's definitely funky. Like, it's not, if you're not somebody that's into like abstractness, it's probably not for you. But I enjoy it. Every time I get it, I'm like, oh yeah, like I want to learn a little bit more. So that's what we get in this book. Is the network is relentless to the point where they manipulate living organisms. It's pretty crazy. Whew. All right, Radiant Black.
What?
Oh my god, big sigh.
What?
So this book is clearly hitting different for different people.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but I'm not like, it's not my pick of the week.
No.
And it's not my pick of the week, but I do like, how do I explain this? I'm intrigued, I'll say that. And the only thing that I'm confused on, and I know it's going to be resolved in the next issue, is the last panel, and we'll get to it. But basically what we got is a failed writer who moved to California to write like a book. Or was it comic books?
No, it was a book.
It was a book. And he ended up accruing a shit ton of debt trying to make it out in LA. Like $32,000 or $36,000 in debt. To the point where he couldn't pay rent, and so he had to leave. And so he moves in back with his parents. And he hasn't told his parents why he's moving back. He's just like, oh, I failed, so I want to live with y'all. No, you don't have any money. You got like $46 in your bank account. Can't get a loan. And so, and I think in LA, when he was trying to get a loan, like trying to like survive, he was like an Uber driver too.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of funny. So he moves back in with his parents. While he's moving back, one of his like high school buddies is like, hey, you're back. I'm going to take you out to drink so we can catch up. And he's kind of reluctant in it, right? But they do it anyway. And I'd say the first half of this book is like just, I would say, typical human circumstance, right? Like everyday life. Like how many people do you know that are actually dealing with that kind of crippling debt? You know, like, and it may not be because they were trying to make it out in LA, but it might be like student loans. Like, I know that, you know, like I'm sure you know that. And so the first half of this book is very human. And we're just kind of getting a dynamic, we're feeling over the dynamic of the characters, of their identities. And our writer guy is just kind of sulking, basically. Like he's got nothing left. He's got nothing left. And he doesn't know how to get out of this hole, right?
Yeah.
And so they get shit-faced at a bar, and when they leave, they're getting ready to get in the car, and one of them sees literally this black hole, like what the cover looks like, and they're like, hey, what's that? And for no real reason, our main character touches it.
Yeah.
And when he touches it, he turns into the Radiant Black character that we see here. And then the cops show up and they're like, hey, what are you doing on these railroad checks? And they're like, just leave us alone. And he, you know, it's thrown at you very quickly. Like, this is happening now. And in this confrontation between the cops, he's using powers that he's gotten from this black hole thing. He's able to levitate people, levitate the train that was coming at them, levitate the cops. I will say it feels, this book it felt kind of rushed at that point in the book. Like I felt like we were building a narrative about his circumstance, and then when he gets the suit, you're like, but did I miss a page? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on? But basically at the end of it, you know, he lets the cops go. They don't get hit by a train where they found the black hole, and they're both kind of going like, hey, you got this new power suit. What are you going to do with it? And that, to me, that was the only disconnect for me. It was like, where'd it come from? And I think how Higgins is writing this, you're going to get those answers later on in the series. But I'll say, like, it didn't hook me. Like, I'm contemplating, should I get issue 2? The only thing for me for this book that hooked me was at the end, which was after they're talking about what are you going to do with the suit, they cut to Chicago, which I would assume is at the same time that they're having this conversation, because we never got like Chicago 3 weeks later, right? We never got that. Somebody in a suit that looks almost like this one, but it's red, is robbing a bank, right? And we know he has money issues, but I don't think it's him. I don't think it's his suit. It's somebody else that's tapped into this power. Mm-hmm. But that was the hook. but I was also confused. Like I was like, is that him or is that somebody else? And it's clearly somebody else, but to me, that's the only reason why I would pick up issue 2, because I felt like we were going somewhere, and then when we got introduced to the suit, it felt very rushed.
Mm-hmm. So for me, what intrigued me, because I was on the fence for picking this issue up literally until I was at the register checking out for the week, and you and Jacob were finally just like, just get it, just get it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Ron's got the stand right there as part of his like guaranteed. If you don't like it, just bring it back. And I was like, all right, I'll just get it. And what intrigued me about it was that what I was hoping it would be is a story about a down and out, down on his luck writer who happens to find superpowers in some way. But the thing that was intriguing me was like a comic book about a down and out comic or a down and out writer. What we got in this book, at least, was half of a book about a down in his luck writer, and then a completely non sequitur to a guy who gets superpowers. And they felt very disjointed. I don't know if have you ever read the origin or the very first issue of Nova, like the 70s issue? So, in the most shortest way possible, Nova was created to be very similar to Spider-Man. Like, he was a teenager and he's supposed to have be in high school and have high school problems. And it was just very much this like, whoa, like, I'm just a nerdy dude and now I've got powers, man. Like, I just want to help people and be nice and stuff, whatever. And like, it's just really cheesy, and that's what this issue felt like to me, or at least once he gets his powers.
Yeah.
The only thing that intrigues me, and I will be picking up issue 2, is what I think Kyle Higgins is going towards. This is supposed to be a case study of ethics or morality.
Right.
It almost seems like maybe like aliens or people that are observing humans are dropping these superpowers down on Earth randomly, and then people are collecting them and they're watching them to see how do humans react when they get these powers. Are you the kind of person that the first thing you think of is, I want to help people, I want to save people, or are you like the guy in the red and the first thing you think of is, I'm gonna go rob a freaking bank and I'm gonna get rich off this shit?
I like that.
And so I think what probably is going to happen is this down on his luck writer that keeps putting himself down and thinks less of himself is going to be shown that he's a upstanding character, because he chooses to help people instead of hurt people.
Because man is inherently good.
But see, and I totally disagree with that fact.
Disagree with that, yeah. I'd be in the same camp. But let me just say this. That 1 in 50, though. Like, yeah,
it's very nice.
Very nice. No, I didn't really think of it that way, and I like that. Because I think in the previews of this book, like in the paragraph that they send out, they talk about like aliens have dropped a power and now they want it back. So I think you're onto something there. So all right, fine, I'll do issue 2. I mean, I was on the fence, but you've sold it, and Ron, pay the man. I will say, like, the other thing that intrigued me prior, and again, I'm very a visual person. I think that's half the game with comics. This cover's freaking dope. Like, the cover A is really good.
The cover is good, and the printing is really good. This isn't the flimsy Marvel Thunderbolts issue. Like, this is it's a better thickness and a better printing, and honestly, like, I just don't comprehend why every comic that comes out isn't like this. Like, these Marvel books are like super overly glossy, and it's like you're trying to find the right angle and the light to even be able to read it because it's so glossy. Yeah. This type of like matte finish with just like 1 point higher, thicker grade paper. I know that seems silly, but like, that's a big deal.
No. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about, right? Like, it's not just the substance of the comics, it's the actual physicalness of them too. And I know that sounds kind of funky, but like, in that presentation, that's something that you have to account for. And I'm sure at Image or at Boom or any independent, they take that into consideration, because like, I'm not saying that the work that Marvel's pumping out isn't as important, but the writers and artists have much more of a stake in their releases with these people because they own the rights to it. So they want to make sure that the reader is, as fully encompassed as possible. I don't know if that's the right word, but like, let's cut back to another Image release. Let's see, Solid Blood on the back of on my wall, right? That was a gimmick release that was potentially a tie-in into crossover and just like a fun idea that they had. But the cool thing about that book was that the actual paper was like the newsstand paper. Like it had that grittiness to it. So when you were reading it, you were basically like time traveling back into like when comics were released in the 90s or even the 80s. And so it's just a step above. Like you're thinking more about it, like either the writer, the publisher, or the artist is thinking more about how the reader can be more engaged with the physical product in their hands. It's pretty cool.
Yep, I agree.
All right, last book tonight this was a a quick buy, but it's because it's a number one from Boom or Kaboom, which is their IDW leg of the company of Boom Studios. So we've got Orcs number one by Larson. I think what's her name? What's her first name?
Christine Larson.
Christine Larson. So this has got very adventure. You ever watched the show Adventure Time?
I have not. I know what you're talking about, but I have not watched it.
Same kind of art style. I'll say the first, again, this book is more meant for like younger readers. But that being said, like after the initial like introduction of our first two characters, the two female characters, when they actually got into like their adventure, which was they were looking for, I don't know if they were looking for treasure or what, but the orcs end up getting attacked by like ninja. I don't want to say ninja, just like crazy ass squirrels.
Yes.
And they can't, like, they're orcs, right? They look scary, they look menacing, but they can't take out a legion of squirrels. So in their adventure to find whatever they're looking for, they get attacked by these like crazy ass looking squirrels. And the entire time they're in the forest fighting these squirrels, there are these two wood elves that are patrolling. They're patrolling the forest, and one of them's like, hey, there's something going on over there, and the other elf is talking like Shakespearean, like just explaining very epically what they need to do in order to keep this forest safe. And I thought that comedic back and forth with the elves explaining what they needed to do made this book. I thought it was hilarious. It's just funny. And so they end up like, they're debating if they need to go find out what the ruckus is. And when they find out it's orcs, they realize that the squirrels have it covered. And so they're just going to let it go. They're going to let it happen. And then I think what happens is at one point they fend off the squirrels, but they're in like a tree that they need to get into. And the only way they figure out how to get into the tree is by insulting the squirrels. And they literally throw insults at them, and it works to the point where the squirrels explode the tree and come after them, and then that's how the issue ends. I solely picked up this book, obviously, because it was a number one from Boom, and I could definitely see this series being picked up by like HBO to be a cartoon. It was just a fun like play on fantasy, really.
Yeah, I really enjoy the single creator aspect of it too. That's Christine Larson is writing it and drawing it, and she even did the A cover for it as well.
Yeah.
And so I always enjoyed getting to see one person's entire vision and how that's going to come through. And I think it's just a 5-issue mini as well. So you're not committing to anything too crazy by jumping on board.
No,
with
not
them.
at all. Not at all.
A fun, easy read, and honestly, I think it'll be cool because if it turns out to be a good story, it's something to. I think this could be one of the first little storylines I could introduce my daughter to. Once she gets a few years older and can actually read.
For sure, because I think about that sometimes. Like when we pick up our books, and like Sarah's like, "Man, you sure you're buying a lot of books?" I was like, "Yeah, but the boys can read it later," and I'm like, "Yeah, they can read it when they're in high school."
Yeah, I don't want them touching my books.
No, because there's just some things in there that we're reading that just like you're like, there's no way I would let my middle schooler or kindergartner read that book. But this, for instance, like you said, is perfect.
That's totally.
Yeah. So any of y'all that are watching this that are, planning on sharing your collection with your kids later on down the road, or you do have kids, this is a perfect book to like. And I know that Boom has done a couple of those books where they're like, they're meant for younger readers, and this is another exception. Not you can do it. This is one that you could do, that you could introduce to your kids for sure. And I'll say I really like this cover. I think this cover is awesome. But the B variant cover, there's another character on there that looks like an assassin. I don't know if you see it, like right there, like he just looks mean. So yeah, I'll be interested to see where it goes. And I think there's another character in here that looks like a luchador, which I think is kind of cool. It's just a fun read. Outside of the prospect that we always throw out there, like if it's a Boom book, you should probably pick up that number 1. This is also another good, like you said, like Nate said, 5 books that you can pick up real quick, and then later on down the road when your kiddo is learning to read or has learned to read, and you want some other material for them to read, this is a perfect book to start with.
Yep.
All right, that's our show. I would show you our pool list. I would, but we are trying to diversify our content, and we are going to, for the first time, exclusively to our YouTube channel, have a comic book haul, new comic book day video that we will debut on Wednesday. So, instead of us showing you what we're going to read next week, you're just going to have to go to our YouTube page and check it out. So I will have that video up for you hopefully this Wednesday, because the weather here in Texas is crazy, and I don't know if we're gonna get our books on Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know about you. We live about 40 miles apart. After it's all said and done, 30 miles apart.
Yep.
I got like 6 inches of snow today.
Yeah. If I put a ruler down in my backyard right now, we walked out in the snow today, and like I took a step and it was just powder, and I couldn't see the sidewalk, and then like Daniel was like kicking at it, and it took him a good like 30 seconds to finally see sidewalk. So I mean, I know that anybody that's watching that lives up north, this is nothing, but for us here down in Texas, the world is ending in Texas right now.
Yeah, unheard of.
But hopefully, we can get our books on Wednesday. If not, we are going to do our first ever comic book haul, new comic book day video over on our YouTube page. So if you're following us here on Twitch, we would love it if you went over to our YouTube page. And let's see, Ron says, all my footprints from 7 p.m. are already covered again. Yeah, I'm sure if I walked in my front yard, they're gone too. If you're not, if you haven't followed us on any of our other socials, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we are on YouTube. We are trying really hard to push the whole go follow us on YouTube, and to do that, you subscribe. And on YouTube, you don't have to pay to subscribe. You just subscribe. And so we would love it if you went over to our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/TFatGuysPullList, and give us a little subscribe, hit the bell, and watch some of our videos. We post all of our previous episodes there. We cut up our episodes, we put them there, but we're also going to now start trying to deliver some more exclusive content to our YouTube page. So that's going to be comic book haul videos. We're talking about doing some reviews on like WandaVision, and maybe even Falcon and Winter Soldier when that comes out. Yep. And then we might do some deep dives into those comics that are related to those shows. Who knows? But yeah, you can find us pretty much on any social platform right now outside of like TikTok, which Give me a week. Give me a week, and we'll be on TikTok.
He'll get that.
But yes, if we would love it if you would subscribe to us over on YouTube, because we do have some aspirations to possibly move our stream over to YouTube, but we're kind of waiting to hit that subscriber threshold to really justify it, because we're still having a great time here over on Twitch. But that's going to do it for us. Just one last thing. Remember, we've got the Two Fat Guys Pull List Mystery Pool. The link is live over on Brainy Comics right now. So if you want to subscribe, it's $35 a month, and you get 4 to 7 comics, an exclusive, and a possible winning at a key, which we are giving away Venom number 9, first key appearance of Dylan Brock. So that being said, thanks again, guys, for watching the show, and we will see you guys next week. Later.
Peace.
Oh, I hit the wrong button again. Bye.
Damn.